Good morning, New York. Well, that's actually kind of pretty. All right, welcome back to Morning Joe, everybody. I'm Mika Brzezinski, top of the hour. I got Mike Barnicle here, Willie Geist, of course. And we've kept Liz Cheney. Eugene Robinson's coming up. I think a little balance will be good for the show, so that'll be fun. Eugene, get ready. We're going to read a part of your piece and then go for it. Look forward to that. With us now, Associate Editor and Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist for the Washington Post, Eugene Robinson, who writes on Vice President Cheney's recent criticism of the Obama administration, quote, and listen, Liz, because you'll be timing in, since 2001, there have been no new attacks on what the Bush administration creepily called the homeland. Therefore, everything that was done in the name of preventing new attacks was justified. The fallacy lies in the fact that it is impossible for Cheney to prove that anti-terrorism methods within the bounds of U.S. law and tradition would have failed to prevent new attacks, nor, for that matter, can Cheney demonstrate that torture and other abuses were particularly effective. Okay, Eugene, stand by. Liz, is that true?
No, it's not true. I do appreciate Eugene's concern for my dad's well-being, and I think, Eugene's got a point. My dad would probably, rather be fishing in Wyoming, given his druthers. But, I do wonder, Eugene, I'd be interested to hear from you. It seems to me that you want him to shut up because you disagree with what he's saying. And I haven't seen, similar columns from you or frankly anybody else saying things like Al Gore should go back to Tennessee. And Al Gore is somebody who's very vocal, very much out there. So is there a little bit of a double standard here? Should vice presidents only speak if they're saying things that you agree with?
Absolutely not, Liz. And by the way, let's just get it all out on the table. I did, in fact, in the column, kind of suggest that your father might be a crazy old coot. And, and so I said, well, how is Liz going to take that? And then I realized that, of course, there must have been a moment when you were 16 years old when you might have said the same thing about him. So, I think...
no, actually, there were several moments when I crashed his car. When I had car accidents.
Georgetown Pike?
Yeah.
Georgetown Pike?
The 7-Eleven on Chambers Road.
Yes.
When he was in the car with me
I did on Georgetown Pike near where you live now.
Not good. But he actually was, very calm, didn't lose his temper, was...
really?
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I didn't get to drive the car again for a while, but he was patient.
All right,
but actually, Liz... No, I certainly don't think he should shut up. And as a matter of fact, you and I are in absolute agreement on one point, which is get it all out there. Get the memos out there that the vice president is talking about, that he says speak to the efficacy of what you might call enhanced interrogation techniques and what I would call torture. But get that out there. Get the Inspector General report out there that apparently questions efficacy and whether it was done right and whether it produced good information. I want to correct one thing my good friend Joe said when he called in. Actually, he said that Dennis Blair, the director of intelligence, had said that, well, he would have approved the same things back in 2002. That's not actually what he said. He said he likes to think he would not have approved them, but he understands that circumstances were different, and so essentially he's not going to judge.
Yeah, but Eugene, you got to look at which statement of DNI Blair's, because his first internal statement talked at some length about how effective the techniques had been and how important the program was, and it was after the White House then edited his statement for public consumption that was toned down, and I know that gives people who care about journalism and who care about the truth and public debate, that should give people some heartburn.
Well, it does, because he's kind of on all sides of the issue. You're right. But look, here's efficacy is a question, and I think if we get everything out, then we'll be in a better position to judge whether, number one, it produced reliable information. Number two, and this is something that is very difficult to demonstrate, did it produce information that could not have been gotten through conventional, traditional, and legal interrogation methods? And there's disagreement on that fact.
There is.
And so let's get more information.
Yeah, I totally agree. And there, I think one thing people could do helpfully, go and look at George Tenet's book. In his book, George Tenet describes what happened when we captured Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. And what happened when we captured Abu Zubaydah, and the extent to which the professionals at the CIA, tried using traditional methods to get the information that they knew these guys had about future attacks against the nation, and were unable to. And Tennant actually quotes Khalid Sheikh Mohammed saying in his first interrogation session, "I'll talk to you guys when I get to New York and I get my lawyer." So the idea that they somehow went immediately to these enhanced interrogation techniques just isn't true. That's not how the process unfolded. And I think it is important for people to understand that the professionals at the agency believed, and were proved to be true, that these guys had information that was necessary to protect the nation and prevent attacks, and that they weren't coming forth with that information based solely on just being, asked, tell us what you know.
Well, that's not quite true about Abu Zubaydah, though. Abu Zubaydah did come forth with the most important information that he had to give us.
Well, I think you and I would disagree about
under
that.
FBI interrogation.
Well,
we can disagree about it. Let's get all the information
because,
out.
You got to look at General Mike Hayden several weekends ago on another network, talked about the extent to which, and he was very specific. He said he'd gone back and checked before he did this interview. And in fact, although Abu Zubaydah had given us some information under traditional questioning, it wasn't until after the enhanced interrogation program began that he came up with the most important and useful information, and the information that was critical to identifying other terrorists whom we were then able to put into custody.
Well, that may be a qualitative judgment as to what was more useful than what else, because he told us about Khalid Sheikh Mohammed before he was waterboarded.
Well, I would go with General Hayden in terms of the quality of the intel that he was providing.
A lot of people would think identifying the mastermind of 9/11 was probably the best he could give us. But look, efficacy is one issue, and I think it's a.
The truth is, neither you nor I know the answer to that,
because all the
stuff
information
is not out there.
Eugene,
So,
let me jump in here, and then
let's get it out. But I want to go to one other issue. Yeah, sure.
Eugene, if the White House, are they trying to have it both ways? They don't want to look back, but they're releasing some information, but they're not releasing all the information, and it happens to be that some of the information they're not releasing actually shows that perhaps some of these techniques work. It's one or the other, is it not?
Well, I think that's possible. That's possible. As I said, get it all out there. Let us judge. Let us take a look at efficacy. But look, efficacy isn't the only thing we should be talking about here. We should also be talking about legality. We should be talking about whether what was done was legal. If I rob a bank and get away with it, there's a lot of efficacy there, but it's not legal.
Yeah,
you can't do it.
That's not a fair comparison, Eugene. That's not fair, because this program was very responsibly and carefully done. And if you look at the history of it, with the CIA coming to the NSC and saying, we need to know what we can do legally, and the very legal opinions that the administration has released are in fact the documents that set out in great detail, this is what you can do and this is what you can't do. If you cross this line, it becomes illegal. If you cross this line, it becomes torture. They were very, very clear. So I think it does a real disservice to the people who ran the program to equate it with robbing a bank or with criminal activity, when you have to look at the very specific and important legal restrictions that were put in place.
I do not think that's the case. Torture is a war crime.
Yeah, that's right, but this wasn't torture, and those legal memos demonstrated where the line was when it would become torture.
Waterboarding was torture during the Spanish Inquisition. It was torture when Pol Pot did it, and I believe it was torture when we did it.
Do you know that we waterboard our own soldiers who go through the SEER training program?
We train them. We train them. We don't do it.
At the end of the day, you can say you don't mean to say, but it's true, Mike.
At the end of the day,
well, then let's get the memos out, because we don't do it for training the way it was done.
Okay, I'm sorry, but if you're going to do it, if you're going to waterboard our own soldiers, if you're going to do that to them, to put them through training, then I find it really hard to believe that the American people would be opposed to that kind of treatment on a terrorist who has information about attacks that are going to... Wait a minute, Gene. Yeah, wait a minute. We're talking about a situation in which there are imminent threats against the United States. So if you say to me, this guy's got information, let me finish, Mike. This guy's got information that's going to save my kids' lives and your kids' lives, that's going to keep this country safe, but we got to waterboard him to get it. I got no problem with that. No, it's not counterfactual. They knew these guys had information about future attacks.
It's counterfactual because you don't know what you would have gotten for them.
Barnicle,
no, it's not. And if you read the legal memos, the legal memos are very clear in saying these techniques are to be used if you believe there's a threat of imminent attack and these guys have information about it, and if you have tried the other techniques.
Responsible torture is an oxymoron.
All right, we keep cutting you off.